Hello everyone, welcome to Futsal and Proud by Futsal Focus. My name is Stephen McGannigan and I am the founder of Futsal Focus, a media and promotional company for the futsal industry. You can visit the official website at futsalfocus.net and follow across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn. Our last interview took us to Paris, France, but today's guests are from Melbourne, Australia. This is the second episode of Futsal and Proud, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show Anthony Grima, Head of Commercial and Futsal at Football Victoria, the state governing body for futsal and football. Alongside him is a man I've admired for many years, Peter Parthimos, CEO of Futsal Oz. If you've never watched Futsal Oz before, here's the clip for you to watch now.
This week's challenge is against an all-star Victorian futsal team.
Seeing opposition, I thought would have a good chance because they all look like geeks.
We all know that. Okay.
The moment we've been waiting for, the biggest moment in Futsal Oz history. A huge round of applause for
Now here's Mike looking ahead to tonight's weather.
Ideal weather for the great indoors.
Some of the kids who are very excited to see a superstar like yourself.
Two match all the way from Russia.
Hello, I'm Peter Hitchener with breaking news, and it's good news too. The Montrose Futsal Club has made it to the VEPL1. Congratulations to Matthew and the team. Hope you continue to play like legends, which you are.
Check Sam Mack is doing some futsal this morning.
And beautiful effort, guys. Congratulations on 10 years. Celebration, well done. 10 years. Thank you for having us this morning. In a moment, we're going to move this out of the way. We're going to have a kick.
I'll be back, and I am back.
And we're rolling, guys. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come on to Futsal and Proud.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. More than welcome. I'm so excited, guys. So today for me is a special day for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I have to congratulate Peter on celebrating 15 years this week of Futsal Oz. 15 years established, Peter. Wow, you must be over the moon, especially with the way things were and what you've had to go through with COVID.
No, very happy. It's amazing how time flies. So, yeah, we've been through quite a bit. Yeah, so thank you.
No problem. And we'll get into that in a minute. So also, I think this interview, having both of you on at the same time is pretty special because it's not very often that a leading futsal provider and a representative of a state governing body are together on the same show discussing the future of futsal. So I think there's going to be more than a few people watching this who are going to be pretty envious of that working situation. So yeah, I look forward to hear, how you look to work together and, vice versa, obviously. So Peter, to start, I think it would be great to, look back at what the futsal scene was like in Australia before this development with, you know, Football Victoria and Peter and Anthony, sorry's new role, can you give us a bit of an insight to what the futsal scene was like in Australia? You know, what was it that made you think, you know, was there a need you had to address? Was it an opportunity? You know, why establish Futsal Oz?
Well, if we go back 15 years, as you said, it was, you know, and it still is. It was very social. It was a game that wasn't very well known. Like when people asked you what you did or what game you played, and you said futsal, especially in Melbourne, Victoria, the majority of the people wouldn't even know what futsal was. So you'd almost have to write a thesis to explain to them the sport. So, you know, we're talking about a sport that was very, very niche, and it is still in a way as well still now. But it was unknown. So it's changed dramatically, and futsal in Melbourne now. Pretty much everyone knows what futsal is in Melbourne, Victoria. Of course, there is people that don't, but yeah, it's changed. It's good. It's welcoming, and I think the future is very bright for futsal in Victoria and Australia.
So back then, like, you know, when I look at that, what was it, you know, when I looked at what you had done, you know, I've spoke to you about this before, going back to 2013 for me, I was a business development manager for a company called Futsal Group. And when I got that job, I thought, right, I have to go out into the internet world and see benchmarks around the world for what we could do at the facility that we had. And you were the first company that I came across. And when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. This is like near semi-professional futsal I'm looking at here with the content and everything. Like, you know, when you look back to the early days of UFC, right, and you look at that content, it is so amateur. And then you go forward and it gets better and better and better. How did you, what was your benchmark? How did you build that? Was that really your like inspiration and just your own creativity, or were you looking to other sports as well? Like, give us a bit of an insight to how you took it from the beginning and through, because your content is incredible. So I'm sure everyone will be delighted to hear where that came from.
Well, first of all, thank you. Well, the way we approached it as a team was mainly that we thought that, personally myself, I thought this is one of the most amazing sports ever. Like, when I really came across futsal and got into it, I just couldn't believe that a sport like futsal was, you know, hidden, like no one knew what the name futsal was. So I realized that when I played it, I had so much joy, but I also realized that it was so niche that there was a community involved. So for us, you know, when we started building Futsal Oz, it was mainly about how do we grow a sport that, you know, in a absolute flooded market in Victoria, Australia, we play every sport you can imagine. So how can you grow a sport? So the whole idea was we realized that the world is a massive stage, and we thought, how can we be the best actors we can? So we convinced people, you know, in a big way at a very amateur level to make teams, to play. We filmed it, and this is back in 2006 and 2007. So for us, these players took it serious. We took it serious. We filmed it, and what that opened the door for was very good players to start coming in and enjoying, you know, the competition, the atmosphere, the culture that was growing, the absolute, it tickled the narcissist in a lot of these players, because they wanted to be in front of the camera and play really well, which is a very normal part of our life now, in many cases with social media. So that allowed better players every season. So every season from 2006 to now has just got better. So now we're in a period where we need to catch up with the local talent that is growing. And I think partnering now with you know, and also working with federations, we see that there's a brand that futsal is, but we also know that we need to play national competitions, we need to play international competitions, and we think that there's a massive pathway with the federation. With there's already so many great competitions out there. So, and that's how it started. And when you probably tapped into it in 2013, we were at a stage where we started getting some very good players coming into the country from Brazil and South America and Europe. So, excuse me. And ever since then, it's been all about how can we improve the game and build solid foundations. And I think the more solid foundations we have, we can package, I think the better it can spread around the state, around the nation, and even around the world, because it's not only the futsal that's on the pitch, it's really the culture and the goodness that it brings to a community. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah.
See, when I looked at it though, for me, what I loved about it was you had the games and you had commentary, and I thought that was great. I was like, this is amateur level and these guys have commentary. And I was like, this is brilliant. And then after that, like, you had a crowd, you'd built your audience. And then also what it's interesting for me is that, like, we had, on my last interview, I had Carlos Ortiz on, the Spain national futsal team manager, and playing for, or not manager, sorry, captain. And now he's playing for Access Futsal in France. And when I was speaking to him, he said that the main goal for futsal should be for children to have references, to have, idols, to have people to look up to see themselves, to see, like, I could be that person. And I felt like even at that amateur level, you were doing that. Kids were having the opportunity to listen to the experience of Andre Caro, just the one name to throw out there, that you had from Brazil, and they had his experience, knowledge. And then also, I think what's been great is, like, I think he was probably, I don't know, you would know better than me, but I think he was another amazing promotion for you, because his content that he was at your facility 100%. Was incredible too.
Wow. Yeah.
And then after that, what I think's amazing for you guys is that Andre Caro is now in UAE, and he's coaching. And now you have like, in a way, an ambassador out there, I'm sure, who's still posting content about your facility and showing people what he was doing there. And it's just amazing. So was that just something that came out of eventually, or did you think like, I want to build references, I want to give the kids idols, I want them to see that they could be the next Andre Caro, etc. So tell us your thoughts on that.
I actually think, the people you come across, Andre Caro is absolutely an amazing human being. He's very passionate. He's a lovely guy. And I actually truly believe the people you come across, you've got to be able to work with people that you come across that, in a very nurturing way. And I think Andre Caro, if he's got great ideas, you've got to allow his ideas to flourish and become Andre Caro. And I truly believe that that's what the key is. Like, Andre Caro's got an amazing mind, and he loves futsal, and he's doing an amazing job where he is. And he's, for sure, an ambassador. But I know that, as this story continues, Andre Caro's still got a major role to play in all this. So, he's fantastic, and it's amazing to have people like that. Without a doubt.
Yes. And like, I could ask you so many questions, but I know we only have a limited amount of time, and Anthony's been very patient waiting to come down. So I'll just ask a couple more, and then we'll move over, and I'll ask Anthony and take the spotlight off you for a bit. But
that's all right, yeah.
Like, I remember one day I woke up and I hadn't been speaking to you, in a bit, and I went on to Facebook, and I was just like, what? This is amazing awareness and promotion for futsal. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I know he was an idol of you. How the hell did you get Arnold Schwarzenegger to come to your facility? And like, the crowds that were there, and the way you brought them into the facility, and everyone that welcomed him, he must have been over the moon.
Oh, it was an amazing opportunity. Sometimes you just have the luck as well. to school with a gentleman named Harry Corris, and he was security and also one of the organisers of the Arnold Festival. And, you know, he joked, I thought he was joking, he goes, you know, I can bring Arnold to Futsal Oz. And, you know, when I hear stuff like that, I think, you know, futsal promote, put on the map, you know, we're under a rock here. No one even knows what futsal is. Let's get Arnie there, you know, let's get the Terminator. So it was more that, it was like, we come from a place called Brunswick. It was more the Brunswick boys saying, we can get Arnold in Brunswick. So, and he pulled it off. And, you know, of course, you know, we rolled out the red carpet. So it was a fantastic day. It was a fantastic moment, and, you know, forever grateful. But it was, yeah, that, I think when you have that focus, and you've got the futsal focus, when you focus on something so much, good things happen. And I think that's what happens.
I 100% agree. And because when you say that, the next thing for futsal people and football people, and even for people from Wales, you know, to see Falcao, Douglas Costa, Rico Zarconi, Daniel Caballero, Andre Caro, to name more, you can name more players after that were on the court. How did that come about? You know, like, how long did that take to organize? You know, what, you know, how did you, what was the brainchild for that? You know, was that your own? Did someone, like you said, one of your employees come to you with an idea? How did that come about?
Well, that was another team effort. Like Andre Caro, he's a massive man that you know, he's got the connections, and he organised a lot of that. And, you know, I put in the creativity and the thought process. It was a huge team effort. It was a fantastic team effort. It was an amazing event. You know, we had another gentleman, Lucas Krull, who had left Futsal Oz, played for Pascal, went to Germany, and was Douglas Costa's personal assistant, personal trainer, you know. So that was another, it just, you know, like I said, when you focus on something, and if you want to do that, that's what happened. And yeah, he had the link there, and that worked out. And we thought, well, let's put in a massive event. And honestly, Stephen, it was more another measuring stick to see how far can we take futsal. Like, I don't want to waste time going down one path when we can take another path. What direction are we taking? Let's find out let's just do a big event. If people are interested and people come to it, and we generally get a great feel of this event, we know that that's what we're going to work towards. We could even do, you know, like a reality show like The Ultimate Fighter, and go around the world and film this and get the best players to come and play a 10-week competition. You know what I mean? We could do that every year, but we're not there yet, and that's perhaps the long-term plan. But yeah, and so many good people, and, you know, you're another good person, and that's how it all works. You know, when minds that share the same interests get together, things happen.
Big time. So to take the spotlight off you and get Anthony into the interview, Anthony, at this time, you know, I know you're an accomplished administrator, player, referee. How did you get involved in futsal? How did your passion for the game start? And have you ever played in Futsal Oz competitions? Have you known Peter for a long time? Like, give us a bit of an insight there, please.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I didn't play in Futsal Oz competitions, but I actually did referee in the early days when Peter started live streaming these matches, and social media was just taking off, really. And can you imagine normally refereeing on a weekly basis and having to put up with the crap, so to speak, that you'd normally get on a weeknight after work, refereeing 5 games a night, to then going to a Futsal Oz competition that's completely almost professional and live streamed, and all your decisions are being scrutinized there on social media. So it was quite a baptism of fire in terms of my days knowing Peter. But I'm originally from Adelaide, South Australia, and I was born into a futsal family. My dad was the biggest influence there. I think from the age of 6, I was always involved in football and futsal. I was quite a good outdoor player. I was playing semi-professionally up until my mid-20s, but I was refereeing and playing futsal all the way through. So I think, as you know, you just have to pick one, and I chose actually going down the path of futsal refereeing, where I saw the biggest opportunity for me. My dad was actually quite a good referee himself, was known to many in futsal refereeing and volunteering in futsal competitions for many years. So he's my biggest influence there, and you know, to the stage where I thought maybe I'd reach out to potentially becoming a FIFA futsal referee, which didn't turn out to be, because I actually discovered later on that futsal administration was where I found my biggest reward, because I think it's through the service to others. And I think looking back at my own family and again, that my dad is, we've always been volunteers from a very early age. We've always just been there for the love of it. It's not, it's always been about, you know, how can we contribute to that team effort, or to the greater good, you know. So it's it's been great, and obviously now that's really served me well, coming into the role of head of futsal for the governing body, of course. My futsal experience as a referee, I've gone to many national futsal championships, also as an administrator for the state of Victoria, taking all our state representative squads to the national championships every year. Peter Parthimos was actually one of our assistant coaches for our men's team that made the grand final in one year. So we've had some good relationships and friendships over the years, that, you know, again, it's all about relationships. It's how you, it's a family. And once you have that, once you're in it, you never escape it. I haven't been part of officially futsal now for the last 10 or so years. I moved on to other roles. I started with Football Victoria back in 2008, actually as their state futsal state squads coordinator. And that lasted until about 2013, when the department was unfortunately made redundant. So we all moved into other areas, and I moved into sort of the elite development side of football. I managed the Melbourne Victory National Youth League team and their women's team as well. And then I found myself later on in recent times, in the space of commercial marketing and media. So I've been through some various roles, and
quite
now
quite the experience.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, what's been the common denominator through all those years, despite not being in futsal, has been the friendships that I made during my futsal times, and someone like Peter and many others throughout Victoria and even South Australia. I've been in contact regularly. So that's what it's about, engagement, and again, that family, you just can never escape it.
Can I tell you my observation when I saw it? And this is the honest truth. When I saw it, I thought, thank God a futsal person got the job. Because see, around the world, I'm so used to seeing a football person, even though futsal people being looked over, and a football person getting the role. And I'm like, that guy or that woman, you know, okay, their heart might be in the right place. They might want to do the right job. I'm not saying that they can't. But I just feel that a futsal person is going to have that passion, that focus, the word we've used in this interview a couple of times, Peter said, to really know what needs to be done, and also have those relationships in place that you have. You know, like you said, you've known Peter for a long time. I'm sure when Peter saw that a futsal person got the job as well, he was over the moon. So up until the announcement of your new role, what was Football Victoria's attitude towards futsal? You know, has anything changed? Was it always this positive with this forward-looking outlook to come to what is now your role? And why look to take a leadership role in Australia now? What to drive the sport forward in its development? And like you said in an interview, the commercial potential as well. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation, because as the governing body of the state, you also sort of fall within the framework of the national body as well. So, you know, Football Australia had a whole of football plan that, you know, I guess covered for other social formats of the game, but futsal wasn't specifically mentioned over the years. I think we all knew that futsal was a fantastic sport in its own right, but over the years in Australia, it's been really predominantly made up of many private providers. And I think when it comes to governing bodies who deal with non-profit or incorporated associations who are mainly their football clubs, you don't really want to go down that road, and you don't know where to start if you're not a futsal person, or if you're not someone who's close to that side of the game. You don't know who to trust, you don't know who to talk to, you don't know where to get your feedback from. So I think there's a range of factors. I know with Football Victoria, we hadn't, whilst there was no internal operations for it, we did outsource futsal services to a provider who was involved in the game, quite dedicated for some time, and who was still now involved, even now, trying to contribute to the greater strategy of the game. So we're very fortunate to have really good relationships externally that can help us transition, if you like, from going back to that external provider model, outsource model, to bringing the futsal back in-house to our operations. And I think the biggest change that we've seen, and I've been there at Football Victoria now for 13 years, is that we've actually incorporated it now into our strategic plan as a governing body. In 2019, we implemented our strategic plan called Football Ways, and essentially the vision of that was to inspire all Victorians to live and love football for life. And that's really, for me, I've never seen that really in a strategy before. It's always, your vision is, to be the sporting organisation that governs the sport, but to use the language of to live and love football for life, to inspire all Victorians. And the other side of that is that we wanted to cater for, football anywhere, anytime, any gender, and any format. And I think in 2009, whilst we didn't implement, or whilst we didn't include futsal initially in the first year, we did do an independent review of futsal, which had a whole heap of recommendations. It was quite extensive, and spoke to people like Peter Parthimos, other providers, other centres, futsal clubs, futsal referees, you name it, stakeholders across not just Victoria, but we also went to other states as well. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we couldn't actually implement any of those recommendations last year. So where we are now is that we've actually seen post-COVID, or we're still sort of in a little bit of we're still seeing COVID now in 2021, unfortunately, but we've seen, unfortunately, the detrimental impact of that on providers such as Futsal Oz, who actually haven't seen their players for over 9 months. They've just started to resume their competitions now. So in that time, when Football Victoria is assessing its own viability, and I guess, you're reassessing all the time, you're reviewing what's good and how we can better surface the game and the clubs and the community that we serve, is that you look at the impact of the futsal market, and it's been absolutely devastating, really.
Yeah.
Right. And in one weekend, I remember having some communication with our president of Football Victoria. We saw an article. We saw 2 articles in the space of 2 days over this weekend. One article was about a leading futsal provider in the country being in a bit of hot water from taking a lot of money from players and parents, I guess taking them, for a bit of a ride in terms of overseas tours, and because of COVID, those tours had to be cancelled, and then there's money owing, and on one day you've got futsal, the name of futsal and the brand being driven through the mud by the media, and then on the day after, you've got a company where you've got an organisation like Futsal Oz, who have, from my last audit was, they could service anywhere from 5,000 players in any given year, and they announced, or Peter's announced that potentially he'll have to close up his 3 main centres that service the game. Not only that, but some of our top tier footballers for men and women. So then you say to yourself, well, you know, what do we do from here? Do we just leave those players to be displaced? Do we not lend our support to someone like Peter Parthimos, who has driven futsal pretty much single-handedly because of his brand and what he's done in terms of the profile for the last 15 years? You know, there's not just, you take the business element out of it, there's also a human element there, because it's people's livelihoods, and it's also all those people that play futsal that people don't realize is that you've had a bad day at work today, but you know, you're looking forward to that half an hour or 40 minutes of futsal tonight, because that's your escape from life.
I think it's great to hear that from you, because I think sometimes people forget that administrators from governing bodies are human. You know, I think that they forget that they can, you know, see the emotional side to it. They can see, you know, the impact, and they can have that understanding, you know, that it can. Because I know here in England, I'm not in England, but I mean in the UK, in England, that's been the impact for people when it comes to the England national futsal team being removed, you know, and for a lot of people, they feel that they have neglected the human side to that, the impact that could have on, because the mental health issues that could cause for a lot of people who have been involved in futsal, trying to promote the game in England for the last, you know, 20 years or more. So it's wonderful to hear that, you know, that was a consideration of the state, you know, governing body in Victoria watch that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I know this is not a self-development podcast, but you know, take the football away, take the administrator, take the futsal person out of it's just being human first, isn't it? Being treated as you want to be treated. And you know, that for me, you know, since a very early age in my own family and my Maltese heritage about, you know, working hard and being there for others and supporting each other. For me, football is no different for me, whether it's personal or in business. It's you know, we're all there to you know, we all want football. We're there together. You know, how do we grow this game and make it, you know, what we want it to be. So I think if we use that as a standpoint, then we can achieve a lot of things. It doesn't matter what country you're in.
True. Tell us about, give us some examples of the development. You know, I read an article and I saw that you'd went out to the other states and talk to them as well. Can you tell us what was their reaction to your new rule? And now you're trying to push the sport more in your state, and give us examples, you know, of the developments that you wish and hope to achieve during COVID and after COVID, hopefully once we get control of this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been in the role now for about 10 weeks or so, and you know, really the first few weeks of that was going through the independent review from 2019, going through the recommendations, and then marrying it with my own experience and my own views, and to validate that data, I guess I had to call pretty much everybody that I knew, not just in Victoria, but every other state. And I think if we all tap in together, we all tap into the IP, and there's some fantastic individuals. Really, there's some really dedicated people out there who love this game, and they work within a you know, it's quite a hard situation for them to get any cut through from what is their own passion, what they think is right for the game, to the broader strategy of the game. So, you know, I organised the member federation futsal, my futsal counterparts there to you know, speak to them as a group, as a collective. We speak once a month now as well, but also one-on-one, and it was probably no surprise to them that this was happening, because, you know, there was the build up there. But I think from when they realised that Football Victoria was going to take futsal back on, there was some really sense of excitement, because, you know, really for the country here, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland are the three real biggest markets, not just for futsal, but for really anything in terms of sport. And it's important that as the three largest states, we needed to get that right. You know, so, you know, the fact that Victoria is now coming back to invest in the resources that we need to govern the game. And I think what surprised them, was our narrative. and the genuine wanting to unify the sport and work with the providers. It was interesting to see that other states had a setup where similar to ours, where we, in the last, 10 or so years that we outsourced futsal to a provider. Some states have done that. Some states have like New South Wales, have been, and Capital Football in Canberra is a very strong futsal state as well. But they've always hosted national futsal championships. They've always been at the pinnacle of at the top there in terms of being able to produce, the next lot of Futsalroos Australian players and having, quite progressed Premier Leagues for men and women as well. So they're the ones that you go to. They're the ones that you want to bounce back your ideas from. But regardless of the operational side of things, it was more about, we're going to be working with wanting to, unite all the private providers, and that was a bit of a shock because it's not a normal thing to do in terms of the governance or the framework that currently sits in a football landscape.
I thought it was interesting that you were taking that approach, because my natural reaction would to feel that providers would resist a governing body. That's what I honestly thought. And then when I saw that you wanted to reach out and work with them, I thought, I really hope that works, because you can imagine that when people, Futsal Oz is Peter's baby, and he's going to be so protective of that baby, and he's going to be, so I can imagine that a lot of them would be feeling the same way. So it'll be interesting to see how those relationships, develop over the coming year and so forth, and how things work. And you touched on it in an interview, not when I read, you talked about coach education, referee education, national competitions, a dedicated part of the website and everything for people to go to. Can you talk more through those different steps that you hope to achieve in the coming year or to 5 years?
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically, like any strategy, there's beautiful, colorful documents out there. But if you really refine it down to, for me, and for us, there's three main areas that we wanted to really invest heavily in. First of all, we just needed to formally recognise the sport of futsal in our strategic plan, and a sport in its own right. Once you do that, it's cemented in black and white, and it just doesn't go away until the plan ends. So I think at the end of the day, people can see that there's a strategic plan for the organisation. For us, it's to facilitate the growth of futsal, including schools. We wanted to make sure that we can foster the increase in development of players, coaches, referees, futsal clubs, and futsal centres. That's a real new culture that we've seen now build up with futsal, is that there's the development of futsal clubs. And we've seen that also in Peter's venues with serious futsal. There's actually futsal clubs that have now got players from, under 8s, under 9s, wearing the same kit as the seniors that they'd go to support at night time. That's
amazing. That is fantastic.
To see that. We've got some regional clubs that have got 700 players in their futsal club now. It's really, really great to see.
Give the people watching this an idea. If you don't know the exact number, if you could just try and estimate it, that would be perfect as well. But how many people are playing futsal in Victoria, and how many do you estimate to be playing across Australia, if you know that figure?
I'm not sure the Australian figure, the current, but in Victoria there's 40,000 players that are playing not just futsal but indoor soccer as well. So when you look at that impact, again the human side of that, and you've got, in Victoria was actually one of the strictest governments in terms of lockdown in Australia. We were locked down, I think, for the most time than any other states. So the impact here on the business, industry, travel, all that sort of stuff is just tremendous, right? And also, we talked about mental health before. Gyms weren't open, all the indoor leisure centres, swimming pools, you name it, that was not open. We had to stay at home. And I'm not sure what your experience at the moment over in Northern Ireland, but we're only starting to get 8 to 11 cases now. So anyway, the 40,000 players, they're starting just to return now after that, huge, lockdown period. So It's quite exciting, and unfortunately for us as the governing body, because of our lack of, I guess, governance in this area for quite some time, and not unfortunately, I mean that in a respectful way, those providers have been left to, I guess, carry the game or carry indoor soccer or futsal on their own terms, and you know, without our support, without our help. So 40,000 players potentially, you know, couldn't have not come back this year because they might have chose other sports, or, you know, and what gets me is that, you know, coming through and you know, further consultation and looking at, we put it, you know, you talked about referee and coach education as well. We want to make sure that we can start, rolling out referee courses again for futsal referees. I reckon there has to be at least 300 referees out there in Victoria, and I'd say that the bulk of them would not be accredited. They would not be qualified, or if they did the course, it'd be 10 or so years ago.
Oh.
You know, so you're refereeing at centres across Victoria. You know, some centres might have 700 players, some centres might have 5,000 players. How do you have that quality control of, are the venues using the same laws of the game for futsal? How do we make sure we can develop those referees? And the same with the coaches. There hasn't been a coaching course, I don't think, since 2016. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, and I'm quite excited about the challenge that's in front of us. We're about to announce the 4 referee courses we're going to do and the 4 coaching courses for the benefit of the futsal centres and the futsal clubs that are out there. And the snowball effect from the lockdown hasn't just been on the players, of course. You've got referees who might be refereeing every night of the week, and they haven't been able to even make some money from that, right? So there's that aspect of it as well. And you've got young kids who going through school who normally, you know, might have a night job refereeing instead of being at McDonald's, right? So there's those type of things that we don't see and we don't think about.
I'm sure you can't wait to get your teeth into it, you know, further once this COVID gets under control, because it sounds seriously exciting. Before we move on to the next question, which is for you know, Peter, and I just want to, because of what you've said, Anthony, is Peter, touching on what Anthony has said, can you tell us about the human impact? Can you tell us, like, Anthony's talking about 5,000 people at a centre. I'm sure yours is one of those. I'm imagining, like, coming into from what I've saw in a year must be around that figure. Like, what if you're get people an understanding, if this interview wasn't happening today, if Futsal Oz had have closed, yep, what type of impact would that have had for your community?
Oh, it's significant, because most of the players that come there, and parents and supporters, I believe not only going there to play futsal, I believe they've formed a bond, a community. We've had, in the 15 years, we've had young couples get together, have kids, and their kids are playing now in our competition. It's a fantastic, strong community, and the impact, you could see it. And I was, you know, to some degree, I was trying to rally to open up. You know, we're closed for about 9 to 10 months. And when you're close for 9 to 10 months, we actually have large stadiums, which are warehouse type facilities. These things aren't cheap. They put the landlord in a very difficult position. They put the business owner in a difficult position, and you're fighting amongst each other, or you're trying to come to some agreement of what it's going to cost for this 9-month period that you're absolutely closed, locked down, you can't go in and open and operate. So it was a very difficult time, and I think the impact was not only on the people that work, or you know, there's a domino effect of what their involvement is with Futsal Oz, whether they met referees or coaches or, you know, players or whatever. There was a huge impact, and the community could honestly you could feel it. I could feel it, and you know, for some people, you know, that's what kept them going. You know, that community, that feel. You know, so it was quite hard, and yeah, it was very difficult.
I remember I listened. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anthony, if you want to jump in there.
I was just gonna say, like, touching on what Peter's there is, that, you know, the second point of our strategy, which I wanted to just say before, was to really provide an affiliation and support program for the providers and centres. Like, the catalyst for that was COVID. The fact that the official governing body couldn't provide official support to a private provider who had 5,000 players, because let's face it, the 40,000 players is really the main stakeholder here, regardless of whether it's a private provider who runs the competition or it's the governing body. We need to take their interests into consideration and their well-being. And, you know, if we can get a real good affiliation and support partnership with the centres and the clubs that is mutually beneficial, where we can, you know, provide the guidelines. You know, during lockdown, for example, we have, you know, 360 football clubs that we provided ongoing weekly advice around, you know, whenever the government made an announcement about returning to training or wearing face masks or hand sanitizer, or, you know, what they could do about when they can return to train. We would send communications out, but we couldn't do that for futsal. We couldn't do that to the futsal clubs and centres. So, you know, I was watching from afar, just trying to say, well, you know, my heart breaks, you know, and it's like, you know, the third aspect of the strategy as well is, if, and I don't mean any disrespect to you at all, Peter, with this, but if Peter centres closed down, for example, 3 crucial sort of locations, you know, 2 in particular for the state, we don't have any other facilities nearby, or we, you know, where we could sort of even, you know, temporarily get those players to play at, for example, right? And you know, we really need to do better by, you know, for us, is if we can integrate futsal into our existing football facility strategy, and partner with local councils or even government at all levels, really, to invest in, you know, increase and improve facilities for futsal generally. Like, because there's 40,000 players out there, that's just going to grow. We know that. That's going to grow with or without us. So we need to make sure that these players have something to play. I'd like to see purpose-built futsal courts, but, you know, you've got basketball and netball, and let's say, for me, basketball and netball are our COVID. And that's a strong statement, but basketball and netball are the ones who are the biggest threat, because they're getting, you know, that's where the funding's going. They've got clear strategic direction on the game. They're partnering up. There's the, you know, the indoor courts are made purposely for basketball with the line markings and netball. So we need to be part of that conversation for futsal.
Yeah.
So, you know, one thing it's COVID, but the next thing is about facilities in general and fighting for our place there.
Yes, that's a really good point, because, you know, you find that even in the UK, you know, people trying to develop futsal are competing with other sports for time to play and even then, you know, and because these centres know that, they're able to drive up cost as well, and sometimes people are priced out, you know what I mean, because they can't afford that time space. So, like when I was in England, what the clubs have to pay sometimes to get a match is crazy money, you know, just and can put people off. And another thing when you touch on facilities is, like you said, is more people are going to play. But what if you can't facilitate that need? Are you going to lose those people? Are you going to lose their interest?
That's what happens. You know, yeah. we turn away thousands and thousands of players even for football every year, because we don't have. I think we need something like 432 new pitches just to cater for the current growth trajectory of the game of football.
That's
in Victoria.
Huge.
That's dominated by your AFL and your crickets and those type of environments, right? So, you know, and, you know, futsal's, you know, it's really in the same basket. I had an email, I think yesterday, from a regional futsal club / centre. They run their own competitions as well over in regional Victoria. They need a second venue. They've just you know, over several years of developing themselves without our help, the demand is strong, because
that's amazing.
But we're also seeing you know, a lot of multiculturalism through Victoria, but, you know, even Australia, you know, nationwide, is that, you know, the 11-a-side game and being part of a club and training twice a week and playing, that doesn't cater for everybody. It doesn't. That's why futsal is such a popular choice, and that's why, you know, new arrivals or those from other countries, for me, either have, you know, the sport of choice for them would be, I think, football, and then you've got, you know, potentially basketball, and then you've got cricket. So, you know, in terms of the two indoor sports, for me, I want futsal to be, you know, there, up there in terms of servicing that market as well. So
what is also good is options, though, because when I'm talking to people, you know, it's interesting how people come into futsal, you know, because you have people who come in at a school age and that's what they love, because that was their first baby, that's what they were introduced to, you know, futsal. Then you have others who were brought in by friends, like, and then you have others even at the highest level, like, for instance, Alice Evans, who's a professional futsal goalkeeper in Italy in the A2. She was actually representing Wales at the international level in football. She was playing professional football for Cardiff, and then she played futsal, and she went, "Where have you been all my life?" And she was like, I'm just futsal now," and she just shift career. And then you have also other people who are really, really good at football, but their skill set is more suited to futsal, to that close quarter you know, playing, to the quick decision making, to that movement and looking for space and the short passing and all. You know, that's actually what's better for them. But if we don't cater to them, then we can lose them, because they might hit a ceiling and think, well, this is it for me, I'm not interested anymore, and they not realize there's this other sport that is actually best for them. And Peter, you know, just to go back to, like, you know, the impact again, I don't think I can go on with this interview to not touch on a radio interview I listened to you on, and the emotion that was in your voice. I honestly thought you were either crying or going to cry, like you know, because it was just like I thought I was feeling it in my chest. I was like, Jesus, this man has put so much into this in 15 years. Please, God, don't let this happen to him. And I think at the end of it, the time you were trying to get politicians to support you to make sure that the you know, you can get some money. I think you were looking, where's this money coming from, so we can keep these centres. And you were talking about the you know, the guys that own the big warehouse, like you said, you know, and negotiating with them to keep it open. Like, say, so people just hear it come out of your mouth, if you don't mind. Isn't it right that about 5,000 people come in and out of your facilities or facility or facilities? Help me out there and give me the correct number. But what type of environment have you built, and how many people would this have impacted? Give a figure so people understand what you've done in your career.
Yeah, like within a year, it's a lot more than 5,000. But every week across the three stadiums, you had around 4,000 to 5,000 people that would come in. Obviously, during finals.
Wow.
Well, along the whole week, yeah. So
but
you'd
still
have quite a lot of people, and then during the big tournaments, because we'd have, you know, series futsal, which is attracts quite a large crowd as well. So you had quite a lot of people come throughout the week. So this had a humongous, and the community got stronger through COVID because we remained resilient. We had we have closed one of the centres, which is in Mount Evelyn, but we've managed to keep one in Brunswick, the original where Arnold Schwarzenegger came. And look, with Thomas down there, looks like we're still. It's not finalised, but we've got the negotiations well along the way where a deal can be made if everything goes well. So the impact has hurt us, but I think we're going to bounce back stronger through this period. And it all depends. Again, we don't even know what's going to happen in 2021. We might go back into, you know, and it's not like we've got I don't know, remote control where we can choose. So we're going to try our best to stay open.
Peter, you also have a large group of full-time or part-time employees as well.
How many people work for you, Peter?
Well, with refereeing and that, because refereeing's a couple of shifts here and there, so it's sort of like a hobby for most people. So if you had the referees who come in throughout the centre and with the staff, you know, you could be looking at 50 odd people. At one stage, when we were completely overstaffed, we're close to 100 people working for us. But then we worked out that we didn't need that many people eventually. But yeah, 50 people odd. And then when you look at it, indirectly with the clubs and the coaches, and there's all these other positions that are through the clubs. So all these got affected. So it's great. It's a great amount of number who are directly involved in the mechanics of the whole Futsal series, futsal and futsal in Victoria in general. And they were impacted quite a lot, not just the players that just rock up and play. So it's quite, and again, we don't know what's happening this year, so when winter comes along here in Melbourne, we just don't know what could happen. So the whole agreements and the deals that you're negotiating with these landlords is all about, if this happens again, what process do we follow? Like, this can't keep on happening and we fit the bill, It's like, you just get a bill for going to a restaurant, but you've never rocked up to this restaurant, but you've got to fit the bill. How does this work, So if you're not operating, and it's not any fault of our own, like I want to operate. We've been forced by these rules to stop. So anyway, it is an impact. We believe that we want to remain positive though. Overall, having said all this, we think that we're trying to build a license, which is like a franchise model for a 2-court stadium, which we want to basically be able to sell to, really mums and dads, that can, get into a business that they can enjoy and love and make some good money through it, and be able to be passionate about it. And as these franchises, the more license agreements, as these start spreading out, then we're talking about a large amount of numbers playing. From what we're looking at now is a vast majority of numbers. It's like having your own, I don't know, what would you call it? We've got like have you got F45 there? Which is like a training franchise. Do you have that in Ireland? F45?
I don't think so. I've never heard that before.
So it's probably more Australia, USA and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's like a franchise that spread quickly, although we've been around 15 years, so it's not going to be that quick. But what it does is it introduces to a community the brand of futsal, and plus more a lifestyle. So that's what we're interested in doing, and through that we believe that working with all the federations, not only here in Victoria but around the world eventually, I think that would be a great move, not only for the federations, but it would be a great move for Futsal Oz in general. So we believe in abundance anyway. So we believe that there's enough for everyone, and if everyone's got the right intention and you have the futsal focus, I think that things can be, it could be the sport of the future. And that's where we're heading.
Well, sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's interesting what you're trying to develop there. From a private provider perspective, you're trying to, build the brand, build the licensing model where we're ultimately going to see more facilities for futsal, for more players to access, and they're going to be purpose built for the game. And on the other side, we're talking about our strategy is to partner with councils where those, particular facilities in the majority of cases will be a multi-purpose sport operation where netball and basketball will get looked after quite well, I would imagine. And we're going to be fighting for court space, every night of the week to get players out in the park. But, it's interesting to see how we form a balance with, you're a unique provider because you have your own centres, so to speak. The majority of futsal centres and clubs in Victoria don't have their own centre. They use council facilities. So we need to try and find a balance or a model that's going to work for the entire ecosystem, not just in Victoria, but in every state across the country. And then from grassroots all the way up, because you mentioned schools before, Stephen, as well. Ultimately, the school students of today, those primary school kids, are going to be, the senior players, and for women, for boys and girls as well of the future. So they're going to be, Peter's, future customers, for example. So we need to feed them into their local centre or their local facility, whether it's here in Melbourne or whether it's regional Victoria. So we need to all come together, unify, and be part of the same conversation, be on the same page, because ultimately, regardless of whether it's someone's livelihoods and they're running a commercial operation, the beneficiaries of all this, whether it's run by a governing body or a commercial provider, are the participants themselves. And there's a pathway that they aim to be on.
Well, talking about a pathway, and Peter has talked about national competitions. You and your strategy talk about national competitions and the importance of them. Just so I understand, when you say national, you actually do mean all of Australia now. You don't just mean Victoria, right?
Yeah, the states come together to participate.
Yeah. So see for me, because I was going to myself before this interview, make sure you remember to say this to the guys and see what they think. So let me pitch you an idea and you tell me what you guys think, okay? So I come from Ireland, as you know, and we have our own traditional sports. We have the GAA. You may have seen mixed rules when Aussie rules played Gaelic football and they mixed it. It was incredible. Quite violent, but incredible. That was my eye-opener to Aussie rules. I was like, what the hell is this? These guys are, doing wrestling moves. But anyway, but we have our own traditional sports, like I said, but we don't have an opportunity to represent Ireland in GAA. This is our home. Well, yes, people do play it in New York and parts of America and parts of England as well, and in the UK. But what I mean is we don't have a FIFA World Cup. Obviously, it's just our proud traditional sport here in Ireland. But what we get love and pride from is representing our county, which would be, I'm sure you have like counties within your state, probably. I don't know the geographical makeup of Victoria, but I just mean, but what would be our county would be the equivalent of your state. So I live in the county of Antrim. So if I play Gaelic football or hurley, I want to represent Antrim, and representing Antrim for me is like representing Ireland. You know what I mean? Like if I pull on the Antrim jersey, that's something for me to be, come on, I so proud of, So I was just wondering, as we know with the Australian Football Federation, the Australian futsal team is suspended. It's back. It's suspended. It's back. The National League is suspended. It's back. I think at the moment in time, Australia doesn't have a national team. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's correct. So see, internally, do you not think it would be great to have internal state futsal national competitions where people get to represent their state against the other states? Do you not think you could harbor like the environment and what, like if you look at what Peter has done in that facility, just take that out and bring that into a larger community for them to pull on the state of Victoria jersey and to play futsal against the other states? Do you think that could be a great, because like development step? Because if you're playing for your state,
Stephen, we actually we actually do have the National Futsal Championships that's been going on for quite a number of years. We're talking about 20+ years, I think.
Yeah.
So we do have that, Victoria versus New South Wales and ACT, that type of it's been predominantly hosted in ACT over many years. Sydney, I think New South Wales have hosted it many times. We'd love to host it in Victoria in 2022 if possible, because it will really showcase futsal to the wider sporting community as well. But we have that, and look, to be honest, that despite the not having a national team for men, and I think really I'd love to see, I think we'd all love to see that reinstated, but also the a women's national futsal team as well. I think if I'm not mistaken, FIFA have now included the FIFA Women's World Cup, I think, as part of the national development plan. I don't think they've announced anything in regards to the World Cup.
Yeah, they haven't announced when it will take place, or they've just said it is there and something they're looking at basically. But so when the Futsaroos program was up and running, there was a clear pathway, from juniors that aspired to be the next Futsaroos one day and play at the next World Cup. And you have to remember that Australia only recently entered the Asian Football Confederation. Mm-hmm. So we used to be part of Oceania, and now we're part of Asian Football Confederation, which brings on more opportunities to play
even with futsal, our FIFA referees are, are constantly trying to get over there and get experience. So, in the absence of a national futsal league as well. So, there's questions that need to be answered about, if we do reinstate the Futsal Roos team and how do these players get picked? How do they play? How are they going to be able to play futsal regularly? And we can compete with the likes of Iran, for example, or Japan, or Thailand, for example, in those countries as well. So this is where we are now, and I think I'm very pleased to know that Football Australia have included futsal as part of its 11 principles documents, which is about the future of football, and they've said that they want to establish a framework, or a national agenda for futsal and beach soccer. And I think that obviously, while we're here now, it's requiring reinvigorated dialogue amongst the member federations, in particular, about what our role is in terms of governing futsal and where these future players come from. So this is really an exciting time, in my opinion, despite COVID, there's been some really great positives that have come, because we can really start assessing the situation where we're at and where we want to head with this game. So we really want to bring everyone along for the journey. And as far as I'm concerned, here in Victoria, whatever we do, we want that to align with the national agenda, and we want to inspire other states to be able to govern this game properly and take everyone along for the journey in the right way.
Yeah, no, look, I'm delighted to hear that, because it's my mistake, my misunderstanding. I thought your state national championships was club based. I didn't realize it was state representative based. Because
okay, so there's the National Futsal Championships that takes place in January every year. That's state-based. It's representative teams.
Brilliant.
We have the state championships that are in Victoria. That is not that for us. It's club-based, but Peter Parthimos and has run some state championships in the past that have been just team-based as well. And there's other teams and clubs that have been from interstate. So that it's really kept the brand of futsal going, and some fantastic events that Peter runs in particular. So there is a tournament up in the Gold Coast called the Gold Coast International that is quite big.
I saw that recently.
A few weeks ago. That really, for me, has taken place. We used to have a national sort of club championships back in the day that bolted on to the national futsal championships as well. So it turned from state versus state to a club. There was a club component of that many years ago. So I think Gold Coast is trying to fill the void there, and it's a fantastic idea. But ultimately, that should also be a national league where clubs, across Victoria are competing, in a national league. So many questions, so many things to sort out, and how we structure it, and how we all work together.
And Australia's a big country.
Yeah,
it's a massive country.
It's a continent.
So it's everything almost.
It's huge. No, I get that. It's
Yes.
I just think then, in all honesty, like, all of it sounds amazing. And what I would recommend is for them to really make them bigger is watch Peter's content. Content is king. Presentation, how you put that out there and get people to be excited and engaged. That's what I would recommend all those people looking to replicate what Peter's done, or to do, at that state level, because, you want content, get people excited, references, role models, all that things that people feel like people get a camera in their face and a mic and they feel important, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they feel appreciated. They feel like someone cares about what they have to say, and then they can share that with their friends, and then they and it goes wild. So I'm excited, and I'm not even from Australia. I think it all sounds great, and so I'm delighted for you. So, moving on to the next question is for Peter then. So Peter, you've heard everything Anthony's had to say. I'm sure you've talked prior, obviously, to this interview. I remember you shared the article from Football Victoria when the announcement came for Anthony's position and what they planned, and you were excited. So how do you see this working for you as a provider, and how do you plan to work with him and the state to make it successful? and the sister efforts?
Well, look, yeah, for sure. I think it's an awesome opportunity. I think, like we said, we've got a pretty clear vision of our model, and I think that the federation, how it can play a major role, is also basically combining all these players in a structure where they can represent their state, they can represent their national team, and there is pathways through the schooling system, and there's such a big role for the federation to play here. Our model, of course, will benefit our model because what we're going to be doing is putting these models everywhere. So I think it's a win-win situation. The federation's got a major input from getting kids from the early ages at school, through the competitions, into the states, the championships, regionals even, and then working its way to a national, and then also at an international Commonwealth level. So I think, we're in the Asian zone. I think that Australia's got a big role to play through futsal here. So I think the federation's got a major role, and we would love to be a part of that in any way we can. So I think that how we fit into it is that we will facilitate the week in, week out stuff where people can go and play and get together and have the communities. And I think the federation can look at all the details that integrate other states, other regions, other countries, continents and stuff like that. So that's the big picture. I believe that I think that the federations can play all over the world, really, because it's an amazing sport, and it's a sport of the future. As we can see, our kids are growing up indoors. They're on the games and devices. They're used to being indoors. It's perfect. When you look at in the cricket scene, you had Test cricket, 5 days for a draw, and then all of a sudden we shrunk it into 50 overs. When the World Series came out with Kerry Packer back in the day, and now all of a sudden we've got 2020 and people are talking about 10-10s now. So we're looking at, even there's other sports anyway, but what I'm trying to get to is that it's a compact sport, and people can, relate to it no matter what sport they follow. They can come along, sit on the sideline, and they know what's going on straight away. So it's an amazing sport. I think the community is the big winner from this, because wherever you open or wherever it's played, and the add-on effects, I think brings families together.
And so, guys, I have no other questions. If there's anything you'd like to finish on that you thought, I know sometimes we finish these interviews and people go in and they think, oh, I should have said this, or I forgot to say that, or is there anything you'd like to finish on?
I'm pretty cool. I think you've done a great job. So if Anthony wants to say anything,
I think from our perspective,
thank you for the opportunity, by the way. But Anthony, go for it.
Sorry, Peter. I was just going to say, from our perspective, as and for me personally, we're not there to compete with private providers. I mean, Futsal Oz has done a fantastic job, in the last 15 years to really hold the brand, really across the country. There's other futsal providers that are out there naming, names. Australian Futsal Association, that their focus has just been futsal, and I don't blame them for that. That's someone's passions turned into someone's livelihood, and it's just grown from there. And I think, in Victoria, we're not there to compete with private providers. We're there to unify them. That's what I would like to say, leaving this, because we're not starting from scratch. They're already there, with or without us. There's 40,000 players across, the state who play. So we need to, really come together. We need to unify. We need to get the referees sorted. We need to get all centre providers knowing
coaching,
the right laws of the game, refresher courses. We're there to provide direction, advice, the regulations that we should all sort of be willing to come under in terms of making sure that we provide best practice experiences, not just from what we learn here in Australia, but what they're doing overseas in other successful nations as well. So I think that's where we play a role. And I think, again, it's a genuine narrative to unify the game, and we can all come together through respectful, dialogue and conversation. And how do we turn those discussions? Because this podcast could go on forever. We love the game so much, but how do we take how can we take this experience and this conversation and everyone's IP and experience into something that, you know, we can really build something special for the game that's going to be sustainable for years to come. And just be, you look back on and you say, from where we were, and it's just so, you know, everywhere, and there's no direction, there's no leadership. You know, I hope years from now we'll look back and say, you know, we really got it right. You know, and for other states and countries to look and say, wow, that was fantastic. They come from nowhere to what they've built today.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for that, Anthony, and thank you, Peter, for your time today. I've really loved it. It's been great. And like you said, I could easily do another hour to learn more about futsal in Australia, because that's what this is. You know, people forget that. It's like, yes, I do futsal focus and I cover global futsal, but I'm learning every day. You know, there's always something to learn, and like you said, it's about bringing people together, sharing information, and building the sport that we love. And I'm excited. You know, when I hear people, like in the last interview I did, I talked about people getting negative about futsal, and when you're in your own silo, you can get negative, and you know, and you feel like things are not going fast enough. But when you look at what's happening around the world, for me, like every day being involved in futsal is a dream come true, and I love it. Like, so, guys, thank you so much. Well, everyone, that's just finished for today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this show with Peter and Anthony, and go to the Futsal Focus official website at futsalfocus.net, and you will see interviews there from all around the world, from US Hall of Famers who are now supporting the game in America, to US Youth Soccer who are now supporting the game, to what's happening in Norway, to what's happening in the Dominican Republic, to what's happening, pick a country, and you will find out what's happening on Futsal Focus. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.